A food crisis may be imminent as the United States is facing attacks from different fronts. One of them, food producers raising prices just because they can.
One of the first guests on this show to actually call for a hard economic landing. He says that the Fed has blown it by continuing to hike rates over and over again, trying to quell inflation. But if you look, we are starting to see month after month inflation slightly coming down. When will the retail customer, Stu, see a market decrease when they get that receipt or they pay with their Apple Pay card or whatever it is, once they stop thumbing through the National Enquirer at the checkout?
Yeah. Hey, I feel for our customers. I mean, we've been in business 100 years right now. My grandfather started delivering milk, and we're still a family business. And a lot of our customers are friends and even the people that work at Stu Leonard's. I feel for them. Rent costs are up. Gas prices are higher. Energy prices in general. So, there's a lot of costs for our people. And, before, I know, Lizzie, you're probably going to ask me, but you mentioned greedflation. We have been so sensitive to our customers. I've basically been splitting any price increases that we're getting. And we've been hard on our suppliers. We're trying to resist any price increases. Right. But if we do get them, what I'm doing is splitting them 50-50
well, you're
with
amazing,
the customers.
but the big guys are not. And when you look at some of the earnings reports of the publicly traded food producers, and I'm specifically talking about Pepsi, General Mills, some of these other names, McDonald's, they have been able, and they've been very honest about it, instituted price hikes, and they're keeping them there because people are paying them.
You got to watch out for those shelf prices, guys. Not to mention, I'm hearing more and more reports about grocery store shelves starting to empty out again. Now, I've been telling my wife about food shortages coming. She thought I was crazy. And perhaps maybe I am. But just yesterday, she did a little grocery shopping. Empty shelves everywhere. She definitely noticed a difference. Once the real food shortages actually start hitting, they'll all come around and start understanding the situation that we're in. I just hope it won't be too late. Stay safe out there, you guys. Now let's look into this food crisis that we're in. So first, there's rice prices. Rice has reached its highest price since 2008, and a lot of Asian countries have actually started imposing export restrictions. Rice is a vital food for the world's population. Nearly 20% of the calories that are consumed by half of the world come from grains. And this is according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Now, especially in Asia as a continent, Asia consumes around 85% of the total rice production in the whole world. That's a lot of carbs. And it's no wonder that an increase in the price of rice is the highest since 2008. And it has set off alarm bells all around the world to the point where, experts are actually fearing possible food crises in Asia. And that's eventually going to hit right here in America, right? I mean, just imagine a scenario where Asian countries start facing a rice shortage and folks there start shifting toward foods that are more commonly found in American diets. This, my friends, is a situation that could very well have some pretty widespread effects on global food markets, including here in the United States. So what might happen? Well, if Asians start favoring things like wheat-based products, think bread and pasta, or corn-based goodies, such as cornflakes, maybe tortillas, due to the rice shortage, the demand for those items would certainly shoot up globally. Now, this could lead to even higher prices for wheat and corn worldwide, not just in Asia, but in the United States. And so this is where it starts affecting us right here in America. When global demand for these alternative grains starts going up, it can have a knock-on effect for what we find in our grocery store shelves now. So, bread and other wheat-based products, they could easily get much more pricier. Plus, the shift in global food preferences could disrupt trade relationships and also lead to changes in trade policies, which can indirectly impact our economy. And on top of that, supply chain issues could also arise, affecting just how much food is produced, transported, and distributed, possibly causing some logistical headaches and driving up prices for various food items in the United States. I think you guys get it. Our world food supply chain, it's pretty interconnected. So what happens in one part of the globe can ripple through to affect us right here at home. And this is why it's important to keep an eye on food security and food shortages just like this. Specifically, rice export prices in Thailand have increased by almost 50% year over year. This as the percentage of rice consumption has doubled in the last 25 years. Part of the price increase is because of irregular rainfall and drought, which hinders production processes in terms of harvest, supply, and costs. The impact of the weather phenomenon El Nino has severely affected production in India and in Pakistan. In 2022, below average monsoon rains decreased overall production in India, and devastating floods produced Pakistan's annual production by 31%. Russia's war in Ukraine is another aggravating factor. Due to this conflict, the price of fertilizer, energy, and fuel reached record highs last year. This, plus the disruption of the supply chain, has driven up production costs and squeezed producer margins. So now the world's largest rice producers are doing this. India, the world's largest rice exporter with 40% of the total banned exports of non-basmati rice, white rice in July, they were pretty blunt about it. They said they wanted to ensure adequate availability of non-basmati white rice in the Indian market and to mitigate price increases in the domestic market. So yeah, they are definitely prioritizing their own people over the world, which is a whole lot more than what I can say about our own government right here. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Sending money over to the Ukraine before you even think about helping your American people here? Oh yeah. But the real worry here is the potential for another rice crisis like 2008. Now, according to a study by the OECD, between January and May of 2008, the price of a ton of rice rose from $300 USD to $1,200. That's $1,200, guys. Now, in case you didn't catch that, that is a 300% increase over the course of just 4 months. Back then, rising rice prices in some economies quickly spread to other markets as consumers and governments alike across the region struggled to secure supplies. Now, this is a national resource problem. It also pushed up prices for other staples such as wheat as buyers opted for alternatives. Countries like Haiti, Egypt, and Cameroon, they even had several protests against food insecurity. And we gotta keep watch, guys. Asian countries like Hong Kong and Singapore, which import all of their rice, are probably going to be the first ones to suffer the consequences. Meaning, when these countries start seeing signs of trouble, it may be time to start preparing ourselves for food prices to soar in the United States as well. Food and agriculture experts from the UN, they're saying that the world is at an inflection point at this time. Even before India's restrictions, countries already were fractionally buying rice in anticipation of scarcity later when El Nino hit, creating a supply crunch and spiking prices. India's export restrictions will take offline nearly half of the country's usual rice exports this year. And these repeated restrictions are making India an unreliable exporter. What could make the situation even worse is if India's ban on non-basmati rice creates a domino effect, with other countries following suit. Another one, the United Arab Emirates has suspended rice exports to maintain its domestic stocks. Now, another threat is if extreme weather damages rice crops in other countries. Oh, we ain't ready for that, folks. Plus the lack of clarity about what India will do next and the concerns about the El Nino. And what that means is Thai exporters are reluctant to take orders, mill operators are unwilling to sell, and farmers have increased the prices of unmilled rice. With price fluctuations and becoming so unpredictable, exporters, they don't know what prices to quote. Because, well, prices may spike again the very next day. Closer to home, I'm already hearing reports of empty shelves in Canada. From Eastern Ontario, Canada, they thought that the remodeling of grocery aisles to make up for the scarcity of foodstuffs was an exaggeration. Well, not anymore. People witnessed it themselves. The aisles in the grocery stores are now so large, at least 4 rows of goods have disappeared. It's definitely time to pay attention, guys. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of our next updates. And if you really want to show your support, go ahead and hit the like button and give this video a thumbs up. Definitely appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for that. But another possible culprit for rising grocery prices, Biden's food stamp expansion. So according to a government watchdog report pushed by the Biden administration to increase food stamp benefits, SNAP, EBT, and the like, to the tune of $1 trillion could be responsible for a 15% rise in grocery prices at the store. The Department of Agriculture rolled out revised nutritional standards for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, in 2021 that expanded the program by 27% on average from pre-C-19 pandemic levels. So, between 2019 and 2022, overall spending of the program more than doubled, going from $4.5 billion in 2019 to $11 billion in 2022. The spending hit $8.6 billion in March 2023, despite some emergency allotments having expired. And it's expected to rise by over 5.8% over the course of a year. Now, overall, the expansion is projected to cost U.S. taxpayers more than $1 trillion over the next decade. So the increase in spending on food stamps has fueled a rise in grocery prices and has contributed to high inflation. So maybe this sounds like we better stop funding Ukraine and start funding Americans, right? According to the U.S. intel, Ukraine war has caused one of the most disruptive periods for global food security. Russia's invasion of Ukraine caused deep disruptions in the global food supply, raising prices and increasing the risk of food insecurity in poorer nations in the Middle East and North Africa. And since all of these supply chains are intertwined, it also probably contributed to the U.S. food inflation too, hence making the direct and indirect effects of the war major drivers of one of the most disruptive periods in decades for global food security, especially since Ukraine and Russia were among the world's largest pre-war exporters of grain and other agricultural products. Now, this covers bread, pizza, and even beer. Now, eyes are on the global food prices, which likely will depend partly on what happens with the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which Russia ended in July. The deal, facilitated by the United Nations, has allowed Ukrainian agricultural shipments to safely exit Black Sea exports and reach the international market. How much acreage the Ukraine is able to cultivate as the world continues to rage and the cost and availability of fertilizers will also have an impact on global food prices. Global fertilizer prices reached near record levels in mid-2022 as global oil and natural gas prices rose. Droughts last year in Canada, the Middle East, South America, and the United States also made war-related stress on global food supplies even worse, according to the report. Now, intelligence officials are accusing Russia of weaponizing food supplies by blocking Ukrainian exports, destroying infrastructure, and occupying Ukrainian agriculture land. They got this from satellite imagery and open source reporting. They said Russia stole nearly 6 million tons of Ukrainian wheat harvested from occupied territories in 2022. Now, government officials are saying that Russia's recent refusal to renew the Black Sea Grain Initiative will worsen this crisis and possibly even cause more food inflation for the US and other countries. It is just becoming tougher and tougher to catch a break with these issues days. First, there's this intense heat. Then the wildfires and violent storms followed. This summer is on track to be the hottest recorded on Earth, but the impact goes far beyond keeping cool. Extreme high temperatures are creating risks for food production. Heat waves destroy crops and they threaten to drive up food prices. Food insecurity is the new norm, with climate change causing crisis after crisis and overall higher food prices. Now, if you look at recent price increases, they're somewhat slowing as supply and demand adjust. But I think it's just a little bit too soon to call it over and done. Climate change is increasing the chances of sharp swings in food prices in the future. Over the next few years, El Niño weather patterns could easily get worse, raising global temperatures and bringing more extreme weather conditions toward us. I mean, they're already predicting that sugar, cocoa, coffee are very much at risk, and so are the grains. Cocoa prices hit a 12-year high in New York trading this summer, with harvest in West Africa hit by extreme wet weather. Now, another example of a vulnerable staple is wheat. Researchers at Tufts University, they found that heat waves that only had a probability of happening once every 100 years based on conditions in 1981 are now likely to happen once every 6 years in the Midwestern US and once every 16 years in northeastern China, both key wheat producing areas. But even recently, Hurricane Lee ravaged Maine, New England, and Canada. Lots of the people there were caught in the flood. There was even a death or two are heard. These extreme weather events are just going to be more and more common in the next few years. My advice, stock up when you can and always stay updated on the latest news from our channel.